right, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We are live here in the Weather Center. We're back. We're back in the Weather Center. No more extreme lag, Lord willing. We're here to talk tropics, and we're here to see exactly what goes on and what's going to be happening over the next several days with the tropics and all that fun jazz. And today is a bit of a big day. We are not only going to be live streaming on YouTube, but we are currently live streaming on TikTok. We have officially made it to the 10,000 follower milestone on TikTok, and we are now streaming side by side. So I will have my YouTube chat, and I will have my TikTok chat, which is wonderful. I'm super excited about this. And we're going to be collaborating. We're going to be talking together simultaneously about the tropics. So, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. It is June 5th, 2024. I don't know if you guys can tell in my voice, but I'm still battling a head cold. It rapidly intensified yesterday, unfortunately. So, now we're kind of sitting pretty with our nastiness, our funkiness in our head. We have quite a bit to talk about today, and unfortunately, we've seen some backwards trending over the last 36 hours since that train wreck of a live stream that we did the other day. Let me just double check my TikTok, make sure that we are actually live, because I can't really see if we have folks joining, if anybody can hear us. It doesn't look like we have anybody on there. That's very interesting. That's weird. All right. Anyways, regardless, we're going to go ahead and talk tropics. Okay, perfect, Jacob. Thank you for wandering in and out of the YouTube chat into the TikTok chat. I guess we'll see. Maybe it's going to take a second because it's TikTok Studio. But anyways, guys, we've officially hit that 10,000 follower milestone. I'm super pumped about that. So now we can finally go side by side. I have my YouTube chat here. I have my TikTok chat there for folks who may want to join in. I need to kind of look over the incidentals on how this works because on the app, it doesn't show that I'm live. But on here, it says that I am, so that's very interesting. I guess it is what it is. So first things first, tropical activity. We were talking on Monday during that rough live stream that we had with the troll after the troll after the troll getting crazy in the chat on Monday. We're not going to be lagging today, Lord willing. I'm watching my OBS and I'm watching my YouTube and I'm watching TikTok as well. And so far, it seems that we're doing okay. So we're going to re-engage on the potential for tropical activity as we wander past the date of June 10th up to about maybe June 21st. We're going to examine those dates closely. And we'll also look at the latest information in whatchamacallit on... I'm going to keep talking about it. Sorry, I'm going to keep talking about it. I'm very thankful for that. I'm very grateful that we've hit a milestone. That was an annual milestone that I set for myself, and I'm very humbly proud that it was a blessing, and I was granted the ability to earn the subscribers or earn the viewage over there on another platform. So, and I'm also talking about what the schedule of events for today looks like, Tommy, so we can be a little patient. Thank you very much. So we're going to re-engage on what we were discussing on Monday, and we also have our latest European seasonal outlook. And I'll tell you the truth, for folks who have been tuning in on these live streams recently, it's actually really cool to see that as of the June outlook, the European model, as the thumbnail implies, once again, please don't shoot me in the chat for the thumbnail. The thumbnail implies what the Euro is now thinking. The Euro is on board with what we were discussing. If you guys remember a number of live streams ago with my favorite arrows and whatnot, I'd mentioned as we wander between a cool neutral to a weak La Nina, I think we're going to see our storm trajectories or our general paths begin to shift a little bit up towards the East Coast and the Southeast. I know PM will back me up on that because him and I have been bouncing that idea off of one another for a considerable amount of time. So as the thumbnail suggests, the June outlook brought to us by the European seasonal model actually has a track density outlook of something like this now, which honestly, like I said, does this help us for the hurricane season? Not really, because that puts the entire eastern seaboard under the gun, our greater Antilles, the Bahamas, and of course Florida. That's, the difficult premise there. We'll have to see. We're just getting into the hurricane season, but it's nice to know that there is a little bit of sanity when we're here theorizing and discussing on this channel. So that's good news. So this is what we're looking at, and we'll talk a little bit more about the European model here in a moment. I have that towards the back end of the run. On top of that, we're still seeing a robust wave train coming off of Africa. Let me go ahead and scroll this down a little bit so my head isn't in the way. If you look, our ITCZ has not lifted very much. We're still at about maybe 6 to 8 degrees northern latitude. We don't have too many tropical waves wandering through the Caribbean right now. I think we had one, if not two, that were trying to do something down there. We have this bad boy up and through here that, again, I don't know why everybody was jumping on board the hype train. For the folks out there who were saying I was hyping the other day, come on, get a grip. I had a lot of people out there on YouTube and other social media sources mentioning that that thing up there that I have circled in black was supposed to develop and take on a name. It's like, no, that's not what's happening. And look at it. It's a ragged piece of just whatever you want to call it. So, I don't know. Now, the big kicker, the elephant in the room, is down through here. We still have quite a bit of Central America moisture. We have a couple of pieces of energy that are wandering through the pattern just off of Central America. Believe it or not, even the European model is actually on board with possibly getting something to finally develop in our Eastern Pacific. So we'll see if it finally happens. Because believe it or not, we're 10 days away from being into a full month of the Eastern Pacific hurricane season, and nothing has happened yet, which is crazy. It's detected the live chat didn't appear on your screen in the past 2 minutes. Try using a mobile device to view comments from... That's weird. The live chat is right there. Come on, TikTok. What are you doing? All right, so let's get into the meat and potatoes. So Atlantic 7-day... Oh, I'm sorry. 7-day tropical cyclone activity. Obviously, there's nothing really going on out there right now. Nothing expected on either side of the spectrum. I do believe that we had a yellow blip in the Eastern Pacific AOR, but that has since washed away. That's been more or less the song and dance so far. Now, if we come over and take a look at where our MJO is, we are finally getting into that positive phase for areas that could help to generate tropical cyclone activity for us out here in the Caribbean. So as you can see, as of now, our current analysis, this was yesterday, 0Z on the 4th, we have some of our rising air beginning to take shape, and it's only going to continue to manifest itself as we go over the next 2-ish or so weeks. And by the time, like we've been announcing on this channel and other sources have been discussing, once we get past about the 21st to the 22nd, then we're going to start to go back into that unfavorable MJO phase, and we're going to have a bit more of that subsidence or that sinking air take hold of our Caribbean. Our MDR is still going to have some favorability out there, so we'll have to see if we get some enhanced tropical waves or some more amplified tropical waves. And here comes Weather Center Willow. She's making her return. She was a little late to the live stream. She understands that we typically get going at around 9 o'clock, but she was like, hey, we're doing it at 9:30 today, I guess. Okay. So Weather Center Willow has joined us. And let's see. The European control member for our velocity potential is right on track with what we have going on our MJO charts brought to us by CPC. You can see this large blob of upward vertical velocities, which indicate that we're going into that favorable environment. And it looks like this is what I've been speculating behind the scenes as well. I haven't really been able to tell you guys because... Excuse me, I'm sorry. Haven't really been able to tell you guys because we haven't had the display like this. I've been using my laptop. We've been lagging out the behind. So now we're actually being able to talk a little bit more about this. But looking at the positive anomalies right in through here specifically from about June 12th to about maybe we'll say June 18th, I think this is going to be our new target zone. I'm really thinking that between the 14th to the 8th, whoa. Okay, let's go ahead and restart that. From about the 14th to the 18th is when I'm thinking we have our best shot at possible tropical development, which is why yesterday I actually began to think the GFS might be onto something. I know that's crazy of me to say. It's almost foolish of me to say. Here's a look at our control member of the GFS for our velocity anomaly, and you can see right about now, all the way through to the back end of June, we have that favorable anomaly going on. So GFS might be overamping it just a little bit, might be hyping it up for all intents and purposes, the MJO propagation, but we're still in line with what the Euro is seeing and what CPC is seeing, so we can more or less put a little bit of faith and confidence into this. And let me see something real quick. Forgive me. There we go. All right. Now, this is where it becomes a bit more problematic. So if I switch back to, we'll say 0Z yesterday, and we look at our European ensembles. I love to use the ensembles when we're fishing for weather this far out. So you take it through time, and you start to get into that window we were just discussing from about the 14th. Notice we have a few ensemble members shooting right up towards Florida, of course. And then you go towards the tail end of the run, and that's when our ensembles really start to wake up across the Gulf of Mexico, whether it be pulling something up towards the Big Bend area, the panhandle of Florida, or something around the central southern Florida area. You come on over to 12Z. 12Z looked a little bit more agitated. We had a little bit more activity. Again, right around that same time, about the 13th to the 14th of June, is when we started to see our ensemble members really waking up. We had a few different members going in all sorts of different directions. And then we come over to 0Z, and, we're losing it. We're losing it once again. Because we have 1, 2, 3, 4 members, and the euro is starting to lose its confidence, lose its faith and confidence, and anything kind of taking shape. You come over to our tropical depression probabilities, pardon me, and unfortunately, we're just not seeing it. JNSI, as we like to say. We're just not seeing it, unfortunately. It looks like there are some probabilities still down there in the Bay of Campeche, down there in the southern and western Caribbean, but in comparison to what we saw at 12 Zulu yesterday, for example, we had a bit more of an indication. In fact, you could see that some of the ensemble members tracked it right over Florida before the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico started to get a little more agitated alongside the Eastern Pacific. 0Z was definitely lighting up like a candle. I don't know what the Euro and all of our other models were on, but at 0Z, I noticed we saw a huge increase in our probabilities, not only for the East Pac, but also for the southern Bay of Campeche, but also down over the Caribbean and the Western Caribbean, or the Southern Caribbean, excuse me. So, key takeaway, guys, I'm really not too sure what's going on. I don't know if we're still just too far out or if the models are just going to struggle big time with our CAG setup, the Gyre, because this is more or less what we saw last year with the Dahlia. Dahlia was a pain in the butt, although we had just a bit more consistency with at least our ensemble members identifying the potential for a tropical cyclone wandering over southern Central America into the Caribbean and then marinating long enough to become a organized system, which ended up being Major Hurricane Idalia. You switch over to the GFS, on the other hand, and the GFS, as Zuriel is mentioning in the chat for the sake of saying the H word one more time, the GFS is hyping things up a little bit. GFS is going Oprah Winfrey with tropical cyclone probabilities and has, thank you, Willow. Sheesh, you didn't have to bully my hand all the way to the end of the loop. But anyways, if you look at what the GFS is thinking, I'll even zoom us into the Caribbean so you guys can see. The GFS ensembles are thinking tropical cyclones. Tropical cyclones everywhere. I'm not too sure why, and this is chaos. This is organized chaos of all sorts of tropical ensembles, or I should say ensemble members. We only have about 30 with the GFS, but even then, these spaghetti plots do us no favors. So if you want me to give you, a few different layers of ensemble usage, ensemble predictability is one thing. If you have a number of different members indicating development, okay, that's one piece of the puzzle for sure. But we want to go from just seeing a number of ensemble members out there to a bit of convergence. So, for example, if I come back in time, and again, this is why 0Z just completely blew us out of the water. I don't know what happened. The GFS lost me. You come back to 12Z yesterday, and if you notice in the first half of the 12Z run, notice we have a lot of even this is not too good. Let me go back in time a little bit more. If you notice, right around this time, we have really decent ensemble convergence of something coming out of the Western Caribbean, going up towards the Cayman Islands, Cuba, and then Florida. And then eventually it goes a little bat poop crazy towards the back end of its run. Now we're here. And I'm not too sure why the GFS is going all crazy like this. Even this interpretation at 0Z is a little bit better because we have a little bit more of a general consensus that something's going to form down in this source region, as the thumbnail implies, and it's going to track up towards the north, maybe possibly jog towards the north-northeast, and this makes sense based on the synoptic pattern out there. I don't know what's going on at 6Z, but I don't know, to each their own. The one kicker, as always, as we've been discussing for the last couple of days, and we'll go back down. Let me see if I have us pulled in down there. We do not. There's the precip. We're going to get to that here in a second. But let's go down to Central America so I can show you guys. The European control model is definitely thinking our gyre is going to form up right there. So gyre is in full effect right as we wander into the 10th of June. You can see a massive, just a textbook anti-cyclone subtropical ridge building over Central America. This is what you want to see. I'll give it a big old check mark. This is what you want to see in terms of tropical cyclone development or organization. This is a good sign, and I don't mean that because we're looking for storms, but I'm saying in terms of the overall health and wellness of a wave or a disturbance trying to build that vertical extent. This is what you want to see. That shows rising air and low pressure down at the surface, which a lot of our models have been doing fantastic with. The GFS, the Euro even though it's not showing a disturbance or an actual organized system. The Euro and its AI counterpart have been showing our gyre. The Icon brings it in, the Canadian model brings it in, shoot, even the JMA and the NavGem or the NavGem bring it in. So gyre is definitely going to happen. It's just a matter of if anything else is going to happen. And for the folks out there who had the audacity to come in and start insulting us the other day, I'm going to go right back to what I was trying to explain on Monday. When you have a giant anticyclone and low pressure down at the surface, what ends up happening is you get a lot of little pieces of energy and vorticity, spinach, as Mike's weather page likes to say, floating around the picture like this. It's just floating around in there. It's kind of encased in its own little bubble in its own sphere of influence. And like my thumbnail implied on Monday, for the folks out there who thought it was clickbait, that's great. Fantastic. Don't subscribe. Stay away from the channel. But I'm going to go right back into the explanation for it. With all these little bundles of vorticity and energy right underneath this gyre, right underneath the MJO at the uppermost portions of the atmosphere, you end up getting things that get slingshot in different directions like so. They get shot out, they get spat out in all sorts of different directions. Last year, and I'll change the ink one more time before we move on, last year, in August, we had the gyre set up with our MJO, and it just so happens that one piece of that vorticity was spit out, and it wandered up and over like so, developed, and that's what gave us a Dahlia. Period. That's the science behind it. That's the, I guess, the crash course on it. The one thing I'm noticing here, though, is if you continue through the loop, we have a very favorable environment. This is outstanding for tropical development because what this tells me is that our wind shear is probably going to be up towards the north, right in through here, and our wind shear is going to be suppressed down to the south, so our trade winds are not going to be that excessive. Upper level wind shear between 500 and 300 millibars is going to be okay, and with the gyre and the rising air comes our moisture influx, so any dry, dusty air, anything dry out there is not going to be an issue. The problem is, if you watch this corner of the chart, Willow, I need you to stop bumping my hand. I'm drawing charts like I'm drunk. If you watch up over Florida, there's a trough that comes down pretty quickly, and this could possibly ruin our chances of getting anything to really develop. And I think maybe this is why the European model is so steadfast in developing a system, at least early on. We can't see too far out with our traditional Euro. I'll show you the AI model. The AI model has been very interesting, to say the least. But if you check this out, as you go through the loop, we actually get what looks to be a tut, and then a tut low that cuts off right over top Florida. I don't know what to make of this. Truthfully, I really don't know. This could help to intensify our tropical activity, potentially. Tuts have been known to do that, or tropical upper tropospheric lows, tut lows. But at the same token, if you notice, our upper level pattern has been completely disrupted. Sure, we have a call right here. That's great for upward vertical motion, but our anticyclone is displaced over Baja California and north and western Mexico. This area is under wind shear again. So our upper level wind shear is going to track right back down like we saw through May for the most part, and that's going to suppress anything from going on. The problem with this is that doesn't really add up to me, which is what we're going to have to examine as we go through next week, is if you come over to our height anomaly from the European model, you notice our trough builds in around the 12th and the 13th, but then quickly evacuates. Looks like it's going to evacuate, and we're going to have more zonal flow, more of a anticyclonic ridge down there across. Let me use a different color. An anticyclonic ridge over the south, so this could help to bring back our tropical probabilities. So a bit of a toss-up, definitely a bit of a toss-up, and I didn't pull this up, but I'll go ahead and pull it up now. Let's see. Here we go. If we look at our global tropics hazards, the CPC is going for the potential of development not only between the dates we had highlighted before, the 12th and the 18th, but going all the way to the back end of the month, even highlighting that possible source region, the Western Caribbean, the Bay of Campeche, Central Gulf, the Eastern Pacific. So very interesting that they're seeing something that could still indicate the development or the possibilities of development of some kind of a depression, tropical storm. I'm really not putting any bets. Again, for the people who called me out so heavily on Monday, you're just as bad as Frontier Airlines with the misinformation and all that. I really don't see us getting a hurricane this early in the season. I do have one theory, and I've expressed it to other folks out there offline in the weather sphere, that We do maybe want to speculate if our upper level environment becomes a bit more favorable for tropical organization. Couple that with the fact that everybody has been advertising that our water temps and our ocean heat contents are very similar to that of July and August. Could we see July, August type storms manifest themselves out there? There's no scientific research or no scientific gravity behind that statement. It's just something that I thought of, putting the pieces together. If we have an oceanic environment that's similar to that of later hurricane season, and we get the right components, because anticyclones and rising air, it's all the same. Anticyclones, low wind shear, moist air environment, that's all the same. It's not going to change like, oh, you're just a little more, this is going to sound so bad, but you're just a little more moist in August and September. You have more rising air, and no, it's all the same thing. So what I'm wondering is, if they were allowed to get going, if we were to hold an anticyclone, if we were to hold a gyre for an extended period of time, could we get an Idalia style system early in the hurricane season? Not a major hurricane, but could we see something rapidly intensify to hurricane status? That's definitely something I think that's worth speculating, especially if things do come into alignment. The European 24-hour precip does in fact show that something is going to wander its way out of the Caribbean and give Florida a really nice dousing of rainfall, starting about the 10th to the 11th time frame and really settling in as we go through the 12th. These are the 24-hour totals, which I like to show you guys more than just the total precip. We'll look at total precip here in a second, but as you can see, there is a direct funneling of very, very high moisture that comes right across much of the Florida Peninsula, almost to its entirety, from about the Perry, Florida, Jacksonville area all the way down to the Florida Keys. We're looking at 24-hour totals around maybe 3/4 of an inch to an inch, which if you put it together in the grand scheme for 24-hour totals as you go through the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th, that's pretty decent. That's going to help our drought conditions out big time and our fire risk. If we switch on over to our total precipitation, you can see, in fact, we'll use our total precip control. This is your most likely outcome. You switch over and you can see very quickly right there, bam, getting lots of really good rainfall activity. And as you go towards the back end of the loop, the European model is thinking that West Florida, for the first time in a while, might actually see upwards of 6 to 8 inches. Now, we're going to have to take a look closely and see if this unfolds, because this would suggest... Gosh, I'm so sorry, guys. I'm talking so much that my throat is starting to hurt. My sinuses do not want to cooperate. I might have to lower my tone of voice a little bit here very soon. But this definitely looks like something wants to make its way up out of the Yucatan, through the Yucatan Channel, and up over Florida. Could this possibly be a combination of a trough, a cold front, and tropical energy? That does seem to be the most realistic outcome based on what our models are showing right now. If we come back over to the actual European model and we'll look at the United States, I know we're taking a step out of the tropics for a second, but just hear me out, roll with me, guys. Everything we try to do on this channel makes sense, so... Oh, gosh, wow. I'm sorry, like I said. Head colds suck, but we're going to get through it. We're going to get through it. I'm sorry. I apologize. That's disgusting on my part. I'm trying my best here. So... I know we're up over the United States and this is not tropics, but I'm just trying to paint the clear picture for you guys. You can see a deep barotropic low up over central Canada headed towards James Hudson Bay, with fronts attached all the way down through Texas, the Midwest, the Appalachian region, down into the Gulf Coast. And so as you take this through time, if you notice down there in the Caribbean, we are starting to see the Euro picking up on some tropical moisture, is what we'll call it, just some tropical moisture down there in the tropics. So as our front comes down, at this point, it's very washed. The front itself is not going to pack much of a punch, because we're headed towards summertime. We're in the very tail end of spring now. We're in the meteorological summer. We're approaching the bona fide calendar season of summer. So as that front comes down, this is where your front is at this point in time. You can see our moisture surging up out of the Caribbean. If you guys can try to look at this three-dimensionally, or imagine, there's our trough at 300 millibars helping to support that frontal system down at the surface, high pressure down at the surface. So our channel for moisture is going to be up in this general fashion. And there you go, right there. You can see as that front comes down, boom, we're on a collision course. We're going to see some pretty decent rainfall activity getting pulled up right over the top of the Florida Peninsula. So it might not actually be anything tropical. I mean, there's definitely energy wandering through, but the one benefit here is we have a high pressure down at the surface, frontal system here, and a high pressure out over the Atlantic that's helping to shove moisture up in this general fashion, at least for the best case scenario. If we don't want tropical development, for the folks out there who think that anything discussing a tropical system organizing is hype, at the bare minimum, we're going to be in a favorable pocket to where all that rainfall is just going to funnel right over Florida. So if you need rain, if your lawn is like mine and you need rain desperately, it is coming. We're going to definitely get that funneling effect right over Florida. Let's look at the Canadian ensembles. I forgot I even had these pulled up, and to tell you the truth, oh, Texas is in summer every other day. That low will pull it out of the Gulf. Yeah. So the Canadian ensembles are still thinking something's going to try to form up right around that same time that we were thinking initially. So you could see here right around the 14th, which is what we discussed a little bit earlier. The 14th, the Canadian ensembles are picking up on something, trying to get its act together out of the Caribbean and head up towards the Big Bend area. It could possibly be an Idalia 2.0, not in terms of intensity, but just overall track. We will have to wait and see. Because, again, it's all exciting to look at ensembles popping up spaghetti plots, popping up these low-pressure areas, but there's also been a lot of concerning signs that reduce the confidence across the spectrum. And I'm going to say I'm sorry again, guys, because I'm noticing that I'm just all over the place. You can blame the brain fog. I'm trying to keep it together. Let me just slow the pace down a little bit. So we have been seeing signals on all of our models, the Euro, the GFS especially, and the Canadian model have been very adamant that between the 10th and the 21st, we're going to see some sort of a low pressure area developing. Will it actually consolidate into something that looks more reminiscent of a tropical cyclone? We're not quite there yet. None of our operational models seem to think so. We had a very random rogue run, which was surprising. I shared it on my X the other day. We had a rogue run of the Canadian model, I believe, 0 Zulu yesterday, that suddenly had something tracking up over Florida right there. Yeah, we finally had the Canadian model picking something up and organizing it enough to actually do something over Florida. We'll zoom in on close. You could see a weak tropical storm maybe, or some kind of a frontal wave that's moving in that tried to develop tropical characteristics. This was the only run. And, to tell you the truth, this is kind of what we saw last year with every single, instance of the Gyre, where we have our models going very, very wishy-washy. We'll have to see if this makes a return. This is the 10th. I think the reason the Canadian model has backed off ever since then is because this is too early. I really don't think this is going to be our point in time where we get anything that'll slingshot out of there. I want to say as we get past the 14th. In fact, I didn't look at 0Z this morning. You see, so 0Z this morning still has a very weak low pressure area that drifts up and gets sucked off towards the northeast, right over Florida once again, increasing our rain chances right there. It's only stamped once. I know it looks like I'm making it up, but right here, low pressure, only stamped for one point in time or one frame here that gets pulled out this way because of this frontal system that's right back up over here over the south and east in the mid-Atlantic region. So that, honestly, it just... If I had to give you my honest diagnosis... Oh, the water is warm, Raptor, if you're still in the chat on TikTok. The water is definitely very warm. We're into about 30, 31 degrees Charlie in certain areas down there in the Caribbean off of southern Florida. The rest of the Gulf of Mexico is sitting pretty at about 28 to 29 degrees Charlie, which is well above 80 degrees Fahrenheit for that tropical development. But I think at this point in time, at least for our first segment of favorable setup down there over the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico, we're seeing a case of poor timing, very poor timing. If I come over here to even the North America AOI and switch us over to our 500 millibar height anomaly, even the Canadian model does a fantastic job of showing that trough coming in and then getting pulled back out. So we'll have to wait and see. I think once we can get this trough out of there, that guy right there, all those blue anomalies over the eastern seaboard, eastern Canada that stretch all the way down to the northern tip of the Florida border, southern Georgia border. Once we get past that point in time, we can allow our ridging to finally begin to dominate again. Shout out to Reed Timmer once more. This is when we'll have to watch and see if anything does try to take shape. Because if we switch back to our Caribbean AOI, it's shortly after that trough can get up out of there where we finally see our wind shear really begin to relax. You can see there is still some down there, but not nearly as gratuitous as it is right here. For example, as that trough begins to build in right there, there's just too much activity, too much wind shear down there, and you can see finally after the 14th and the 15th, we're starting to see the window of opportunity grow. And if you come over to, say, for example, the EPS ensembles for our shear, you can see it here as well. The shear begins to really back off. We still have prevailing westerlies, northwesterlies, coming off of the continental U.S. and off of Mexico, but in comparison to this versus this is looking a lot more ideal. 15, 20, 25 knots of wind shear is not going to help to, or I should say, is not going to destroy any potential of tropical activity. It will help to hinder it and slow it, but it's not going to completely destroy it. This here would definitely destroy it. This is not favorable whatsoever. That's why I do think the GFS was out to lunch. Gyre is still in effect. You can see that 1,006 millibar low right there. And if we go over to our lower dynamics and go to 850, there's the Gyre in full effect right here. Can see that nice spinach right over Central America. There's the Gyre that's helping to fuel that anti-cyclone. Decent trade wind activity at 850. And this is why, I'm really not sold on some of the models that have indicated that we'll see something form here and go this way. Just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, at least in my mind, because if you look, our prevailing wind flow is definitely up in this sort of a fashion, which is why our rain chances are definitely going to go up for the state of Florida, for the Cayman Islands, Cuba. Parts of the Bahamas will probably see some of that rainfall as well. So I just don't understand why models want to bring it off towards the west. Maybe towards the latter half of this run, it becomes, oh, there we go. Okay, so that's why. So truthfully, it looks like if we do get anything to organize later on, it's either going to try to move up like this, or it'll end up moving out like this. So now this does make a little bit more sense. I can see it now with a nice little moist tongue, warm conveyor moving up over the Great Plains. That could be a return in severe weather. We'll have to see. Now let's take a look at some of the goofiness that's going on in our model. So yesterday, the GFS at 12Z was a little barbaric in terms of what it did. We had this first system that lifted up that looked very, very, very reminiscent of what we saw last year with Idalia. Went right up into the Big Bend area, got picked up by our trough, perfect timing, boom, got bopped up right up the eastern seaboard like so, and then it had the audacity to develop something else down there in that same location and bring it up in the same exact spot. Very bizarre, very weird. Could this happen? Yes. Is there a likelihood that it'll happen? Probably not. But we have been discussing offline that there is the potential for two little areas of low pressure to try to form down there. I'm not so sure that we're going to get our A and B named storms, but there are some theories out there floating around the weather sphere that we might have to watch for the organization of two different systems. And if you notice, if you come back to 0Z yesterday, still seeing the same thing. GFS was a little bit more realistic in its depiction with a sheared system making its way towards southern Florida with potentially something secondary getting going towards the back end of the run. And then 0Z this morning just completely went off the rails. I don't know what is going on here. Has something develop, drift, and just kind of kick it over the Gulf of Mexico, and then boom, crashes into Louisiana as nothing more than just disorganized rain. This doesn't make sense given our upper air pattern. And then we have something that forms right over top Hispaniola and the Turks and Caicos and runs for the east coast of Florida towards the mid-Atlantic states. I don't know what the heck is going on here. Don't trust it. Don't trust it one little bit. That's very weird. And then at 6Z, it does us no favors as well. 6 Zulu, this area out here is a little bit more believable. Going up towards Louisiana, headed towards the Gulf coastline, and then we have all this going on, which looks to be convectively or moisture-induced by our GFS. This is where it gets a little more interesting, though. So this is our AI European model. If you look at 12 Zulu yesterday, 12Z model run has something drifting up towards the state of Florida, getting pulled north, and then eventually we have a low pressure that organizes and moves up towards Louisiana. 18 Zulu yesterday had a very organized tropical cyclone moving up towards Louisiana. Very interesting. And then 0Z, we lose it altogether once again. We're pushing it further back in time. Low pressure over the Yucatan. So even the Euro AI model is just very, very hit or miss. I'm not too sure. We do have 6Z in here. Okay, so 6Z is in. I have not looked at this one yet. Let's see what 6Z shows us. So 6Z doesn't have anything on its model run. We just have our giant gyre down there. So gosh, the models are not doing us any favors whatsoever. The models are not doing us any favors at all. They're not helping us. They're not cueing us in. Confidence is still very low. Will we likely see something? I still think so, because we're going to have our favorable setup. And as we all know, the waters are hot. The shear will back off. But do I think any of these model solutions are the way forward? Not really. I lost all confidence when I woke up this morning, or I should say as I was flying out yesterday and I saw the GFS went from the straight and narrow straight back into the GFS isms and just throwing cyclones everywhere. So we're back to the drawing board. Monday confidence was definitely growing, but now we're flatlining again. We might have to bring out the paddles and kind of shock and awe, revive everything. Now for the finale of the live stream, we'll come over to our tropical cyclone probabilities on the European model. So if you look, Euro is still thinking that we're going to have a pretty active hurricane season, going for 21 named storms, and mind you, this is excluding the month of June. Oh, my throat is not having it. This is excluding the month of June, so you can more or less anticipate that the 22 that it was forecasting here, 22, 23 named storms, is still in effect. The Euro is confident we're going to get 1 to 2 named storms this month before it drops its prediction to 21 for the remainder of the season through Jason Derulo. July, August, September, October, November. 21.1 named storms. And then you come back here. Where did it go? Why did it disappear? There we go. All right. For the lack of not losing the charts here, I'm just going to click and we'll find them. This is where it does get a little more interesting, like I had talked about at the very beginning of the live stream. So May definitely went crazy. Everybody was a little more concerned about May. There's a lot of videos and other social media pieces of information that are flying around the weather sphere mentioning Gulf Coast, Florida. But it seems like for June, we have backed off a little bit on the Gulf of Mexico, and you could see that we're starting to favor more of that eastern seaboard, Florida, Greater Antilles kind of look, which is what we had discussed a number of live streams ago when looking at our oscillation pattern, our ENSO, because it does not seem as if we're going to be going into as moderate to strong of a La Nina as we were initially anticipating, which is definitely going to play a role on our overall steering. That is definitely going to play a role. We've discussed it. We've looked at a few different research papers here on the channel, and I agree with this. It's very cool to see that the European model is kind of our support system, our supplement to the theory that if we stay in a cool neutral to weak La Nina, we'll see a different favoring of our general track paths or our general paths that these systems will take as we go through the entirety of the hurricane season. This is once again for July through December, so this could be taking out of the equation what could possibly happen in June. May could maybe be highlighting the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico because this is specifically for June. And then once we move into July, August, and September, we're going to start to see things shift away. So maybe that is what the case is. Maybe once we get past the middle portion of June, we'll start to see some things amping up. It seems like the European seasonal forecast is still very, very much so in agreement with that. So we're just kind of in a holding pattern. ACE is still very high. ACE is still very high for July through December. You can see that we're looking at 200% above the climatological norm. That is excluding June now. May was at 200%. June is now much of the same. We've seen it dropped very, very little, but that's because we're excluding the month of June. And June overall doesn't really contribute too much to our overall accumulated cyclone energy. So the Euro is still suggesting that any long track quality systems we have are coming later down the road, down the pipe, as some would say. So we'll wait and see. We'll see exactly what happens once that MJO can finally get in there, and maybe that's what it is. The models are still not quite where they need to be to catch up to all that rising motion with the MJO propagating through like this. We're only barely getting into it, and as you know, there is always a little bit of latency in our atmosphere, in our atmospheric environment. You can see down here, though, especially when you click on the global perspective here, we're definitely getting into it. This is day 10, day 15, day 20, and then 25, and then we're finally starting to work our way out of there as we get out of the month of June. So perhaps this is what CPC is thinking, and that's why they have extended our 20% chance of tropical formation all the way through to the 25th to 26th of June, because it looks like we're only going to begin to kick out the MJO and go back into an unfavorable pattern as we start July. So, got to look back in time. Let me do that right now before we end the live stream. So yeah, Tropical Storm Brett, for example, last year got his act together and started forming latter half of June. So we're not quite there yet. We can't really expect that we're going to be going gung-ho, going crazy, off the chain as soon as we kick into June. A lot of us were convinced that we would see some preseason activity, and that wasn't the case. So we should dial back the excitement a little bit and just continue to hold, continue to wait and see. Once we get into that favorable environment, June 10th and forward, I think that's when we'll start to really get some more agreement in our models. We're still 5 days away from that, so the likes of the Icon, the Euro, even the Canadian to an extent are not really going to pick up on stuff like that. Our ensembles are still going to be our best friend. One little feature to note before we end: if you come over to the Icon at 0Z, the Icon is starting to kind of think that maybe there is a shot at something trying to sneak its way out of Western Caribbean. If you look right there, you can see there's a little something, not much, still very sheared, thanks to that trough that's coming in. But the Icon, even though it's only a 180-hour loop, is trying to look at a little spin, a little weak spin out there. Nothing too extravagant, but little precursor signs, I guess you could say, with really good rain chances for much of the Florida Peninsula. So all in all, if you want my general prognosis, I'm keeping my statistics the same. I'm at about like a 10 to 15% chance of tropical cyclone development over the next 7 days, and that has been wavering, to tell you the truth. I'm not too sure. I want to almost say zero, truthfully. Zero for the next 5 to 7 days, and beyond that 7-day window, it could go up. But as of right now, there's no glaring writing on the wall. The only model in question that we really have to lean on is going to be the GFS, and we all know from all the Vince iterations we had last year, the GFS is not the most trustworthy model to put all your, eggs in that one basket. So, I wish I had more for you guys. We had a little bit more to discuss on Monday, but it just seems like things are tapering for the time being. Our models are still struggling. We got to get that Central American gyre to really establish itself, and then maybe we'll finally get a big picture view of what exactly is going to take shape and what is going to come to fruition. Oh, wow, I did not know that about Eric Burris. Yes, huge condolences to Eric Burris. In fact, I may just leave a comment on his X later on today. I had no idea. From cancer. What a shame. Lord willing, she fought the good fight, and now she has done fighting and can just rest in peace. But yeah, guys, does anyone have any questions for me? Despite previous accusations, as you can see, we're not hyping at all whatsoever. I can understand if I was still forcing development down your throat, but if I had to be 110% honest, even with my brain fog kicking in, I really don't see much happening over the next 5 to 7 days. Confidently, anyways. We're going to get some rain. We're going to have some juice coming up towards Florida within the next 5 days, more than likely, especially as we get into the middle pieces of June. But in terms of Alberto, I'm not seeing them just yet. JNSI. So I'll open up the floor to questions, and then we're going to end up cutting the live stream, and I'm going to maybe try to go get a weak or a low-end workout in to clear the sinuses up, and we'll see what the rest of the day has in store. Skinny Bean, thank you very much for asking. I would say I'm having a good day. It's nice to be back. I love spending time with family. It was a great time, and I guess you could say it was a blessing in disguise that Frontier screwed us as bad as they did, canceling flight after flight. But, on the same token, shoot, no one should have to go through that. It was ridiculous. Booked a flight for Sunday, canceled. Booked a flight for Monday, canceled. Booked a flight for Tuesday, delayed. And I figured, all right, you know what? Enough is enough. And I called, and I almost cussed out the poor woman who was working the desk. Not at Frontier, but working the actual customer service desk at the Raleigh International Airport. And she finally hooked everybody up with a flight coming back home. And we finally got everything sorted out. And I made sure to apologize to her. I really hope that you don't think I'm taking out my aggressions on you. I promise I'm not. I'm just very frustrated with the situation. And then the worst part is, it was like playing the lottery with their freaking vouchers. They would cancel flight after flight after flight and then send me these $100 vouchers. And every time I'd plug in a $100 voucher to try to reschedule the flight, it would be like $19, $12, $50. It's like, what the hell's going on? This is a joke. So finally said enough is enough, and I called up to him, and we got it sorted out. Somebody else, not Frontier related, got us sorted out, and we're finally back home. And I saw your question. Where did it go? Who asked? Yeah, there we go. Kevin Rivera. CFS doesn't have anything, which is surprising. The CFS has no activity at all. CFS doesn't have any activity until July. Good Lord. If that's the case, if we go through a quiet month of June, then for whoever asked earlier in the chat, I agree, I think so. I think if we have nothing that happens in June, if nothing gets going, then we're going to have a lot of people tune out. We're going to have a lot of people tune out. So that's just a little on the scary side. But to be determined, we shall see. I do see that there's going to be a window of opportunity, and we'll probably get something, and our models are just having a very hard time. Models are definitely having a very hard time, and this is to be expected because we're waiting on another seasonal style feature to form before we get any hurricane seasonal style features to form. So obviously our models are going to be poor as all living heck. Ensembles are still indicating something, and it makes sense in terms of the timing, so there is still some confidence there. Just not very high. We're still in the green zone. No, Frontier Airlines, I'm not even going to say is not that good. They're trash. I do not recommend them. Why did the live stream restart? What are you guys seeing on your end? Why is the live stream on my end on YouTube showing earlier in the stream? Why is it repeating itself? Are you guys seeing that, or can you still see me clearly? Somebody let me know in the chat real quick, please, because on my YouTube screen here, I see us going back through the live discussion. It's the beginning again. Judy Toko's good morning. Venture Horizon. Twilight Firefly. I didn't even say hello to everybody this morning. I do apologize for that. Everybody for joining in. Skittles McDiddles, Evan Barr, Sharon Tully, PM, Tommy, Caleb, Nova Viper Dwagon, yes, take care of yourself is always top priority. TG Herman, it's a huge pleasure to have you in the chat. I still can't thank you enough for that $100 donation the other day, buddy. I can't tell you how much that meant, especially with all the ridiculous, just overall trash that was being thrown around in the chat. I still can't believe that. I really hope that they don't come back. I really do, because I even also was sitting there contemplating for the rest of the day that I should not have allowed myself to get out of my professional demeanor. I feel bad. I should not have let them get to me. I definitely showed a lesser side of myself, a more immature side of myself, and that's not going to happen again. I don't care who comes in here saying what. They're nobody. We're here for the community, and we're here to get the good information out, so that's all there is to it. Hopefully we don't have a resurgence of that down the road. But yeah, guys, Adam H, I do agree. At this point, I'd like to see a tropical storm just to bring our rain chances up, just to get a little bit of activity, get a little action down there. Yeah, we'll see. I guess if you guys, whoever out there is still watching who wants to troll, you can take that as hype if you want. I do. I kind of want a tropical storm just to get some rain chances going on over here. Okay, good, yeah, so people can still see us. That's very bizarre. I don't know why it's showing something different on the YouTube side of things. Well, it was Monday, Skinny Bean 66, where people just came in for ridiculousness, for lack of a better term. I got Willow's hair all over me. Oh, well, thank you very much, Maya, and it's good to see you in the chat. I appreciate that. Definitely no hype here, and I guess that's kind of why I get so agitated when people come in here claiming that I'm talking smack, and I'm a fervent believer, and if you guys have been watching me long enough, just like Dennis Phillips and other big-name meteorologists out there, I'm all about hashtag make it make sense, and I'll never forget the comment. I forget who it was, but somebody in the chat actually said on Monday when they were roasting me for whatever reason, she said, "Oh, you said there's a hurricane coming." And I said that I forget exactly what happened, but yeah, she said, "You said that there's a hurricane coming and there's no hurricane." And then like 30 seconds later, she goes, "Why are you getting excited for people losing their lives when the hurricane is coming?" And it's like, wait a minute. So is there a hurricane coming? Is there no hurricane coming? Like, make up your mind. Make it make sense. You're just coming in here blasting stupid comments and you're ruining the chat. You're ruining the discussion for everybody else. Willow is still here. She's still here being mamas. I missed Willow. She definitely missed me. She's been excited for the last like 12 hours. Running around everywhere, freaking out, giving her snacks and whatnot. Yeah, you want a little snack after this? Yeah, you want a little snack? Yeah, they're all hidden. But yeah, folks, I guess we'll just have to continue to wait and see. We shall see. Yeah, no, all those folks definitely like to stay away from the hype train. And that's kind of what's been happening for a lot of this hurricane season already, the whole 5 days that we've been into it, is they're just kind of regurgitating the same information, and that's why I haven't been bringing it up. It's a part of my brief. It's in my Tropics folder for these live discussions, but I don't want to talk about whatchamacallit. I completely lost my train of thought now. Wow, my brain fog is really hitting hard. But anyways, I don't want to just keep talking about water temps and similarities. I think that we're beating that dead horse way too much. I don't want to keep talking about all that. And that's why I haven't pulled it up. I'm not even going to look at ENSO or SSTs, ocean heat. We know it's hot out there. That's not going to help us at all. And I'm noticing a lot of other sources, even the good ones. And don't get me wrong, there's a science behind why they explain it, but even the good ones are going over SSTs and all this again and again and again and again and again. And I just feel like, it's there. It's not changing. So I'm going to save our breath. We're not going to talk too much about it. Oh, yeah, it is going to rain, and we definitely need it. That's why at this point, if there was a tropical storm forming and coming towards Florida, I'd be hecka excited, because that's going to help us a lot. It's going to help our rain chances quite a bit. So I don't know. We'll see here in about another hour and a half, 2 hours, what the GFS suggests. If it's going to nuke Florida with a Category 5, or if it's going to do something wonky and do, I don't know, if we're going to be pinwheeling out there. And we'll see if the Canadian and the Icon model start to hop back on the development train here over the next couple of days, maybe even at 12 Zulu. I've noticed sometimes after we do these live streams, it's like we manifest something. We do a morning live stream, and then at 12Z, it's like, whoa, I should have waited to do the live stream later in the day. And then when we come back to do another live stream, nothing's happening. So maybe we should just, I don't know. Maybe these live streams are bad juju. But alrighty, folks, it is 10:22. We're going to go ahead and start cutting the live stream. We will see you again soon. Got to figure out what's going on with TikTok, because there was like almost nobody who joined, which is very bizarre, because I did a test live stream earlier and there were a bunch of people joining. So I have to see if maybe it's being pushed around somewhere else, or if it's being disseminated somewhere else, if it even shows that we're live right now. I got to still figure that out, play around with it. But yeah. Let's see. Yeah, see, so not very many people in here. That's very odd. I guess we'll go ahead and end the live stream on TikTok. Let's go ahead and close it out. End live. There we go. All right, so TikTok is done. Close that out. Lord willing, we can go ahead and get more people involved on the talk as well, so we can start disseminating a whole bunch of stuff elsewhere. But that's all she wrote, folks. We'll see exactly what comes our way over the next 24 hours in terms of model data. We'll see what the ensembles and the probabilities show. And then if anything, we'll see you guys back here again tomorrow, because Friday I have a enlisted leadership development course to attend with the Navy. For the folks out there who had the audacity to say, I'm not actually in the military, like what in the heck? But I have an enlisted leadership development course to go to with the Navy Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So if we do a live stream on Friday, it is going to be an evening live stream, since I have to be there by 7 o'clock for showtime. So, and Babyface is coming back. I know I just got the facial hair back up and running, rapidly intensifying, and then it's going to be completely diminished by wind shear, shave shear, shaving cream wind shear for the weekend. But we'll continue to talk. We'll just continue to roll with the punches and see what happens. But right now, confidence is still low. We have ingredients coming together to support tropical development, but no significant signs of tropical development, if that makes sense. So environment is going to wake up, and it's definitely going to start to work in our favor if we're looking for cyclogenesis. But in terms of anything concrete, when to watch for organization, we're not there yet. But we're in a holding pattern. We will see what happens Thank you all very much for joining today. If we have any new viewers in the chat right now or who will be watching this after the live stream concludes, thank you very much for your viewage. Please feel free to drop a comment, a question, or a concern down in the comment section at the bottom of this live stream. Please consider hitting that subscribe button, clicking that like button, and making sure your notifications are turned on so you don't miss a future update, especially once things really get going in the tropics. We're no longer on TikTok, but I would definitely recommend doing the same thing on that platform as well. If you have anybody on TikTok or know anyone who really utilizes TikTok a little bit more than YouTube, definitely go on over there and let them know to start dropping follows on the Weather Center Nazario page on TikTok. We're definitely going to get a lot more active now that we finally have the TikTok studio. We're going to be going live on both platforms Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So if you can't make it on YouTube, you can definitely make it on TikTok. Very excited to have hit that milestone. I can actually officially check that off. And if Tommy, if you're still in the chat, that's the reason I was talking so much about it, because as we rolled into the new year back on January 1st, I actually put it on my vision board for the year to make 10,000 followers on TikTok and to make 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. And it's a very nice feeling to be able to say, wow, look at that, check. We're halfway through the year and we already accomplished one. Lord willing, YouTube is up next and we'll just continue to grow. So yeah, guys, we'll talk to you again more than likely tomorrow. We'll see what up-and-comings we have over the next 24 hours. Thank you for once again being such a wonderful audience, and for the folks who donated and took the time to stay positive and provide that positive energy on Monday during that crapshoot of a live stream. I don't know what happened, and hopefully it doesn't happen again for you guys' sake. And we'll see you again soon. You know the drill. This is Weather Center Nazario, signing out.